This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Kevin. Hey Kevin, how you doing?
Hi, Mike. Good to be with you.
Great. So we're going to talk a little bit about the things you've been into the last couple of years, your life, whatever you want to tell us. So to get a picture of you, if you just want to introduce yourself, what it is you're doing,
Sure.
what's your life about?
So my name's Kevin Moran, and I coordinate an environmental campaign to protect Te Waikarepupu Springs, which are near Takaka in Golden Bay.
Right?
I've been doing that for 7 years,
Wow.
and I think that's enough in terms of just general. I'm also a writer. I've written 6 books, and so I combine them both. I call myself a poet shaman.
Right.
And when I use the word shaman, it means that I am connected to the earth, and the earth speaks to me and through me. And usually I hear the earth or the planet or the universe, whatever you want to call that.
Right.
I hear that often in my dreams or on the edge of sleep. Yeah. Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that a lot of your creative and also activist doing lately has been highly influenced by that voice that
Yes,
is
it would
talking
be.
to you.
Yeah, it's very much. I have been guided. Uh, yeah, I've been guided all the time. Most nights, I'm spoken to, sometimes 2 or 3, half a dozen, maybe 10 or 20 times.
Oh,
And I write them down. See if there's on it. You can't see my book. I've got a big double-page book.
right.
And through the night, I'll wake, and sometimes out of the depths of sleep, I'll hear something, and I'll write it down. If I don't write it down, it's gone. And in the
Yeah.
morning, I can wake up and think, "Did should I get some sayings in the night?" And I read them, and there they are. And it's a much so I see what has happened in the night, and then I
Right.
reflect on that over the next day or two, as I just keep reflecting on those sayings, and then I write them. I take them from a diary, put them on Dropbox,
Hmm.
and I've got a whole series of them. So over each year, hundreds and hundreds, in time thousands of these little sayings, which guide my life. And some of them really are just are relevant to my own life,
Right.
but some are relevant to others because they contain principles and that are universal. Yeah.
Definitely. As preparation to our talk, I also had the privilege of reading one of your books called Takaka Song.
Yep.
I hope I pronounced that right.
Takaka. So when you see on top of the book there, it's got that a little mackerel on top of the A,
Right.
and that means it draws it out. So instead of saying Takaka, Takika,
Ta
Takika, so
Takaka.
it draws it out. Yeah.
Right.
It's a little bit of Maori.
Yeah, that's also good. We got a little Maori theory in there.
Yep.
Pocket. So, in that book, obviously, I know that you were guided by these sayings as well as they also appear uh, throughout the book, and they basically take us along your journey that you underwent while you wrote that book. And is it fair for me to interpret that this book, especially, gives us a very like insight into you becoming what you yourself call yourself the poet activist?
Yes. It's very much the book Takika song is it, it's it's narrates the moving from a time when I was receiving a lot of sayings, I was writing, and then suddenly I came into this position where there was this group called the River Tribe,
Right?
and there was being showed bigotry through a small section of that from locals in Takaka, and they were from other countries, including Germany, France, Europe, all through,
Right.
um, and when I first went there, the cars would drive in and they'd spin the wheels and they'd tell them to F off, you foreigners, all
Mm.
this kind of stuff. And, um, and so uh, I started to write and I started to share poems in, at the marketplace, in the local, paper
Right.
and just yeah, all over. And so that, and the locals from the river tribe, that they started to recognize that I was standing up for them because it
Yeah.
was hard for them to up for themselves. They were in a different country and I was
Right.
a local. I knew the local, so I had a better place to do that.
That's
And I did
fantastic.
think, like at the time, that it was like, I've got a daughter and she went to overseas. She went to Germany. She went
Mm.
around the world. And I would like to think that, and it was at the time when the bombings were happening in London,
Oh,
and I was kind of thinking, wow, as a father, if my son or my daughter went to Germany or anywhere else and they were in some sort of danger, that the local people would stand up for them.
yeah.
And so I was standing up for those people from overseas because I was a local. And it's part of my understanding that it's part of hospitality. You offer protection to strangers in your own country, and that was something that was very important to me. People who are coming here, therefore, the local people protect and look after them, and that was part of what motivated me to to get out there and become so active in support of the
Right.
visitors. Yeah.
That's very beautiful. Um, Another thing that I just remember, I sadly didn't write it down, so I hope I don't misquote you, but there's a part in the book that I also found very admirable, speaking about forgiving the sins of youth, and
Yes.
that we don't forget that when we grow old, that we were all once young. So
Yes. Yes, that's
what?
it's a lovely little, part that I just used in one of the very first poems in the book. It was a poem called, uh, it was a poem about the young people and about forgiving them.
Right.
How we often get very, strict and kind of think that they are. It was, in Riley Street, where I
Mhm.
had talked about, towards the end of it, um my life has been a struggle long against dark bigotry. So where there's love within the town, I sense a victory. The heart is like a chapel door. Sometimes we lose the key. So I love it down on Riley Street in peace and harmony. And I love the way the young ones smile within life's pain and strife. These days now short on Riley Street are the highlight of my life. Yeah, in that poem there, that was where I did mention that it's so easy for us as we get older. I'm 73, to actually forget what it was like when I was the same age as you and others.
Right.
People can't, you know.
Yes,
It's a time of exploration. It's a time of openness, a time of questioning as people face the
definitely.
future and they make big decisions at that time. I was very aware of that when I was down at Ryder Street. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something I found very cool, for the lack of a different word, to see that in
Yep.
there and read that in there as well.
Thank you.
So talking about that age that you just described, that age of exploration, of finding oneself.
Sure.
Another thing that I found very interesting in the book was to become who we truly are, we must pass through the valley of salt. That was in one of your poems, I
Yes.
believe.
Yes.
And to me, that immediately spoke. What do you personally had in mind there when you were talking about the Valley of Salt?
From memory, I think there might have been a saying about salt that I
Oh,
had at that time. And but for me, salt has to do with conditioning. It's like it preserves us, and
right.
so it's passing through a time in your life, a valley of salt, is where you discover. the precious values that you want to live your life by. And those are like salt is to, in terms of preserving a life. Those values hold you through your life.
Right.
That is certainly what happened to me. When I was that age, I discovered values that I've held all my life since then.
Yeah. Um, that's actually a nice thing to ask the next question as well, because obviously, as you mentioned, with you already having a lot of life experience, being older, how was that specific experience relatively late in your life and you're still being able and open to undergo like all this your personal transformation and your personal learning and
Yes.
developing every day?
Well, I think I was, and I still am, in a process of change. I think this connection with the light of the universe within yourself, it leads you on a journey where you're always stepping into the unknown. You're always being challenged.
Right.
And you don't come to a point where you've got all the answers and you're teasing, you know what's going to happen. It's not like that at all. It's like you meet challenges day by day by day. You don't know the answers, but you work your way through them and you make discoveries, and that continues to happen. So it's an evolution, and it's an evolution often through death into life. You fall from the the old way you lived your life, your old way of being. You move beyond that. You die to that, if you like, and let it go into a place of searching for new life. And then you come out the other side of it and you're leaving something behind all the time and discovering something new. And that's a that's the best I can describe that process by. Yeah.
That's very beautiful. And again, it's so inspiring to see that never changes
No.
in your life, because there are a lot of people who at some point of their life believe to have figured it all out, and as you've just put it,
Yes.
in my opinion, that is the day you basically die, right? Because you're
Yes.
not living anymore, you're not developing
No.
yourself anymore.
No. That's a really good insight, Mike. Yeah, when you actually think you have it all figured, that's
Yeah,
when you start to die. Yeah, not
exactly.
in the positive way of dying into life, but just actually dying as a growing, developing, increasingly conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm very suspicious of gurus. There are some gurus around. I've read about them, mostly in the past, but there's certainly people I read about them, and sometimes I've seen films of them. I think this person's got it. There's something there. They've got it, and but there's a lot others who kind of they just appear to have it, or they think they've got it. And I'm quite suspicious.
that is actually an interesting topic to myself as well, because as we have talked about, just to quote how you call it in the book, the teacher or
Yes,
the self. I
yes,
myself call it the universe, but
yes.
as we have discussed, there's different names for the same thing that we talk
Nice.
about.
Yes.
And I personally find it so difficult in this kind of guru conversation that we just had to really make out, is this person really like portraying the self, or is this just the ego of that person
Yes.
talking?
Yes.
It's very hard to really figure that out.
That is that is a very that's a very insightful question and something good to hold in your line. Is this the ego or is this the self? And I uh, way back in my 20s, I followed a guru. I went to New York
Oh,
and I spent about 3 months there. Year baby, I must have been about 25 years old,
oh,
and I followed a guru called Sri Chinmoy, and he kind of he certainly had powers. I could feel this pull when he was meditating, there was energy there. But there were also flaws in he was quite egocentric as well.
right.
So those two things mixed together, so I would think that someone who actually is realizing the self or is being realized by the self uh, grows in virtues, if you like humility,
Yes.
integrity. And I would look for those qualities in someone who's
Right. Right.
who might be in that who might be in that journey of a way deep into it.
But that was also a good point of course, in this world, in this earth that we live on, nothing is always black and white. So you also have that person where both things kind of can be true.
Yes,
They have that connection, but still the ego is also
for sure,
trying
for
to
sure.
fight against it. Talking about the ego, um, there's a very good part of the book as well that I found very interesting. Um, Let me just quickly find it. Yes. So basically, 2 points combined. One was waking up isn't about entering a state of heavenly bliss. No, it's about taking on the road terrible destructions.
Yes.
I think this is a very important point for people to realize.
Um,
And if you just want to reiterate on that.
well, look, I mean, I wrote that book what, very close to 7 years ago, and it's absolutely true. You know, I would absolutely totally believe that there are people today who, and often being misled by various gurus or new age teaching, who kind of do think, you know, that the journey they come to this land of permanent bliss. You know,
Yes.
and it just simply is not that. That's kind of a permanent escape, really. Um, that this taking on the road of terrible destructions. Now, I've had hundreds of little sayings about this, and they talk about it. They talk about the destroyers and
Right.
and the murderers and all these very dark names. And what that is talking about is these systems in the world of where people are destroying the world. And so they are murderers. They are
Right.
destroyers. There are systems that are doing that. And you don't need to look too hard to see some of, say, the fossil fuel industry and places like that. That
Right.
once you just look at Ukraine, you look at all these places, there are murderous, destructive powers at work on the earth, and they manifest through human beings. And so, in terms of awakening, you end up being on the front line against that and speaking against them because a person who is awake sees them, knows what they are. You can, for me, it's very much like the Lord of the Rings.
Mm,
Most of your listeners would have seen those films,
definitely.
and Peter Jackson, the Kiwi man, right? Got put them together. But Tolkien, the man who wrote those books, he had this um, understanding of the power of darkness, which he called Sauron,
Right.
and it just kept appearing, and it would come, and there'd be a huge battle, and humankind would almost be destroyed, and then but they would overcome this darkness, and then what happens? It begins to manifest again, and maybe 50 years later, it comes back again.
Mhm.
And that was Tolkien's experience of the in the First World War, then the Second World War.
Right.
That same power and back again. And, I would say it's
Yes.
coming back again today in a different form. So the awakened person sees that and begins to talk about it and this struggle and become part of it. And for myself, I try and unmask it in my writing.
Mm.
These are destructive powers.
Yeah.
They are against the earth. Anything which destroys the earth, the creatures of the earth, is destructive and not of the divine.
Definitely. And just to put the second quote from the book in there, which goes into the same thing, kind of, but maybe a little bit different nuance, is someone connected to the teacher is exiled from the luxury of defeat, while the ego or the little me is allowed this luxury. That's something I
Yes.
also found very insightful.
it's it is pretty insightful, and because I didn't get that. Yeah, I was given that, so it's not something I've kind of worked out with my mind and thought it through.
Right.
It's, exiled from defeat. You know, it's luxurious. You think, "Oh, it's too much for me. Climate change, this climate catastrophe, it's too much. I'll just go off and do nothing." Yet you just cannot do that. The self just cannot do that. The person with the self in them has no ability to step away from this fight. There is no, privilege to say, "Look, you can just have a break for 5 years," or
Yeah.
something like that. Although if you do that, you'll lose any contact you've got with yourself. You actually have to keep once you begin on the road, you must keep going. You know, it's like Gandalf or someone saying, "Oh, just a bit much at the moment. This war, with
Yeah.
all these orcs and things coming down and these horrible creatures. I think I'll have a break." It just doesn't work that way. There's a war going on. It's got to be fought through and a battle going on, and it's a battle for humankind. The guts of it is it's a battle for people to be fully human, truly human, and destroying the earth is not fully human. Like one of the half humans that that Tolkien wrote about. Yeah, the orcs, or those sort of things. They become half machine or half animal rather
Right.
than full humans. And the sayings are always talking about full human, full human, fully human.
So I feel like the discussion is already naturally bringing us to a place where we can discuss an opportunity where you did not have this luxury of defeat, where you did not turn away from the road of terrible destructions, but you actually fought these destroyers. But before we do, I just want to put one last quote of the book in there, and then we can talk about the campaign that you're a big part of. So, the last quote I really liked was the systems that we humans make become our greatest sins. And I feel like we already uh, elaborated about that as
Yes,
well with your previous
yes.
answers.
What we create, these systems we create are our greatest sins. They blind us. We deceive one, but we create them ourselves. And
Right.
seeing through the systems that have created and are creating. That's what we wake up. As we wake up, we start to see through that, come to another space, we see them for what they are, and at that point, we can do something about them, speak against them, and about.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Um, so yeah, it's also touched on in the book I
Kika
butchered it again.
Takika.
Takeka song. So in the end of the book, we also get a little glimpse of how you are getting started, your involvement in the Save Our Springs campaign. And that was when you basically saw an opposition towards a plan to allocate more water to the dairy farmers for irrigation.
Yes.
So, if you could just by yourself tell us a little bit how you got to know about the campaign, what got you started. Uh,
Well, yeah. I mean, I had no experience of. I had never done any work in terms of the environment before. My focus had been on healing, basically. So I worked
right,
as a psychotherapist and worked with dreams, and I'd done a lot of trauma work following the earthquakes in Christchurch.
right,
So I worked for years on the front line, working with people who were suffering from trauma
mm,
and anxiety, all these kind of things that followed. And then I got exhausted, and I moved away and found a place where I could live and write, which was my dream. And I did that. But then I moved up to Takako, where I started visiting there and going um, to the river tribe. And it was at that point that I came to Save Our the guy who started Save Our Springs. He was English, and he came and he started them up, and he did a great job for about 4 months. Then he went back to England,
mm,
and he kept advertising, "Someone to take them over, please. Someone do this work,
right,
and can you do the job?" And I thought, why isn't someone local doing this? And there's no one would stick their hands up. I thought, "Oh,
mm,
maybe I could help out for 3 months. Just help them out. I'll find
right,
someone else." And so I I went along to yeah, I'd been to a meeting, the meeting that you described of which, and uh, which the whole community was really against this. Uh, the farmers getting more water because that would affect the springs, could affect the springs. But I gradually just I started felt like nothing, no kind of knowledge of what to do, and I had this task of kind of I felt huge to me was somehow getting to meeting getting a group together. And I started alone, and then I found one person who would help me, and then another, and
Mm,
that was we had the 2 or 3 of us, and so it was just like that was where it started, um, and gradually we just started to do kind of task after task, and people came in, and it's often people from outside, people who are activists in different ways, who
mm,
that came in and just got helped us, and we just basically good things happened, and good
yeah,
people came. And people responded, and we gradually started to gain momentum. We got a Facebook page going. And we started to meet people, particularly over in Nelson
mhm,
and beyond. And so that and we just grew as a group. But really, it was very much still in Golden Bay or Rohua, which is
mm,
it's Maori now. And it just gradually grew. And from then, there were kind of leaps. There was a big leap when we went into the Environment Court hearing.
yeah,
Suddenly, you had to lawyer up if you're going to go to that yourself. But that was a huge jump for me because I have a clue about lawyers, and I've never been to the Environment Court. And suddenly,
yeah,
I had to coordinate a campaign and connect with these lawyers who were very smart people
mm,
and very, very good environmental lawyers, barristers, and this whole world. But I had to coordinate between with the lawyers, with the expert witnesses that we had, and I was an expert witness during that process as well,
right,
and the committee. So my job became to coordinate with different people. I do some initiating quite a bit, really, in the background, but I kind of push in the right directions. But in the end, the committee's got to come with me, and they make their contributions as well. It gradually just kind of went along. Um, yeah. So that in the end of that, just the story basically is we won. We got this incredible water conservation order, and and then we're all exhausted. 7 years, hard work. We raised $200,000
yeah,
on funding, and kind of at that point we had $4.60 in the bank when it started. And
wow,
I thought it might have cost 10,000. I thought, well, we could probably find 10,000, 100,000 cost in it. And so exhausted. I was really tired. We got there at the end of last year, at the end of 2023. And we were just tired and come back and I just think that's great. I decided to shift over to Golden Bay and just find somewhere to keep writing. Just quiet, like
yeah,
wouldn't need to do say this Brexit. And now at that point, round the corner comes a gold mine, uh,
yes,
a proposal for a gold mine, and something that I hadn't thought of. I hadn't thought of it. Uh, that a mine could be fast tracked so that everything that was gained through the water conservation order, all of the experts uh, had said, all of the everything, all the discussions with the judges and everything that the legal stuff, all that could be just laid aside, forced to be laid aside, and someone could come along with a gold mine. Despite the evidence in the water conservation order that it's a terrible idea to have a gold mine where they plan to put it, um, that can be just done away with. And so it's suddenly back into just flat out fight for yeah, most of this year. So it's been exhausted, long term exhausted. Um, but we're getting there. Yeah. Because you can't, I couldn't back away from it, even though I was tired. And others were too. We all just kind of think, "Maybe break." But 7 years, it's long enough. most things.
Yeah, definitely.
So it came around the corner. And so we really uh, uh, just didn't have the option. I didn't feel it was right to step back. I think this time I've got to step forward. I've got to give it everything I can and begin this petition, which I did, and see that through. And in the end, that petition ended up on Wellington. It was, well, 24,600 signatures. Um, it was on we had it all filmed. We had the leaders from the Labour Party and the Green Party there giving us help. They would help us with the petition in Parliament. So we started off with nothing. Yes, nothing. You know, and suddenly here we are. You know, the moment now where um, we're really on the front line of a very big campaign, and really fighting hard to protect the springs from this. It's basically what's an arsenic mine. Uh, by an arsenic mine, I mean that the ore, which is going to be mined, is full of lots of arsenic, and that arsenic, when it's kind of broken down to a fine dust, becomes incredibly toxic, potentially to destruct, cause destruction to aquifer, which feed Te Waikarepupu Springs.
Well, thank you for that very detailed answer. Just to quickly review and then go again back to where we are as of right now, this second.
Sure,
So,
sure, yeah,
um, that was a very beautiful story, basically taking everything in that we have basically previously discussed.
yeah,
As you see, we're saying like we didn't have anything. That person went back to England and
yeah,
basically started off from nothing and not having this luxury of defeat, not having the privilege of being asleep, but you're woken up and you
yes,
have to like go against it. You cannot just say, no, I'm stepping away. I don't care about this. So you take this on and you then 2023 get the water conservation order, which basically you to get that, if people don't know what a water conservation order
yes,
is, in order to get that, you actually have to show the outstanding spiritual characteristics of those springs, which you did show in court.
yes. There was a series of outstanding characteristics. And there's 16 water conservation orders in New Zealand, and they are the rarest. They're the best waters and the most endangered. And so, and they have outstanding characteristics. So at Te Waikarepupu Springs, it's the biggest spring in the country,
Yeah.
biggest cold water spring, by far. And it comes from this aquifer, marble. And it's the only one from a big marble aquifer. It has the clearest water you can see. So every one of those, that's an outstanding. It's got a blue tint in the water. Uh, that's outstanding. So there's a whole lot of outstanding characteristics that
Right.
if it was lost, it would be just a terrible loss, not
Definitely.
only to Aotearoa and New Zealand, but also to the whole world, to the world community.
Definitely.
It's an exceptionally beautiful place and precious. So, and going back to what you mentioned about outstanding spiritual qualities, uh, the the court had proved the Maori people, Ngāti Tama, Ngāti means a iwi, so it's a Ngāti Tama. They had proved very quickly and well with their experts that Te Waikarepupu Springs has outstanding cultural and spiritual value. And if it was lost, that would be just terrible. And so that was clear. But what wasn't clear was that did it have those outstanding spiritual qualities for non-Maori like yourself and your
Right.
listeners? Was it just Maori people that had spiritual experiences there, or was it others who
That
were
could
not Maori?
also benefit from it.
Visitors, yeah,
Yes.
from wherever, Germany, Spain, France, all over, right? Japan, wherever. And so that was the evidence that I brought, that by a number of uh, means, uh, basically stories that people had told about groups and conferences. They talked about these spiritual values, and that were just it wasn't just Maori who were having the experiences there. It was people from races. And I've seen people go there, and they just come in there sometimes, and there are people that go on there and they've got their iPhones on or something, and they kind of just jog past them, kind of la, 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 and they're gone. There are other people that just walk in and they just suddenly get very quiet and they move very still and just look, right, get silent, and I can see that something is touching lives. And some people will wipe a tear away. They think there is an energy in those springs. It's a feminine energy, and and if you tune to it or look deeply into the waters, you can feel the energy of Te Waikarepupu Springs, this feminine energy. Uh, yes, so yeah,
I actually wanted to ask about that as well. I wrote down here the sacred feminine. Is that what you're referring to?
yes. So I've written another book that my latest book is called Upwellings, and in that I had the evidence in there that I gave to the court. But I also spoke a lot about, instead of using the Maori word
Mhm.
for which Maori will often use a word called huriawa, which is this pendant I'm wearing, which is
Oh,
a picture of what they call a taniwha, which is a mythological creature.
all right.
And on this, you can probably see that it's holding something. So it's very tender. So it's feminine. It's tender. It's a protectress,
Right.
and so it can be fierce to defend its young.
Yeah.
So it cleans the aquifer. Yeah. So this is mythology we're talking about. We're not talking literally. Um, and so those stories, I was unable to use those because they are from the Maori world,
Mhm.
and it's not right for me as a non-Maori to borrow those because they're the experts on that world, and it's theirs to speak about. So
Yes.
when I wrote the book, I wrote about the sacred feminine, but lots of different words because I'm a poet. I made up words like or the lady of the depths,
Hmm.
the lady of the waters,
Right.
or just Waikarepupu, I sometimes called her. So but I made it very clear that there was a presence there that could and did communicate with people.
Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, obviously the court thought so as well because they
that's
ended
right.
up granting the water conservation order, and then as you have just
Well,
uh,
can I just jump in on here, right?
definitely,
Because it was actually dramatic. It was
please.
absolutely dramatic when this was um, when they actually announced it, because we had been pushing them. They they were obviously reluctant to actually say uh, that uh, they were just reluctant to commit themselves to writing about this because it had never been done
Right.
in the environment court, in the main court. Um, no one had ever said that a place had spiritual values for on Maori, and so it
Right.
was very new. And so we kind of pushed them. But our lawyers was asking them, "Are you able to do that?" We were really looking forward to it. When can you do that? They were kind of
Mm.
push from the lawyers was coming. And anyway, just at the they actually wrote it down. They wrote a judgment down, and they said, I'm summarising. They said, "Yes, we see." So my name's Mr. Moran, and there was another person giving evidence, uh, Miss Sanson. We can see that they had spiritual experiences there. And they spoke about that, and it's very clear that they were having spiritual experiences. but these were personal experiences. And how do we know that other people were having them and
Yeah.
kind of and is it fair for us to say that even though I gave them lots of evidence
Yes.
that others were having them, they said yes, but we were uncertain because it was a personal experience for them, and it was very clear they were having it. But we had actually been down there ourselves,
Oh,
and we have, so the court had been there several times, and they'd been down to Te Waikarepuku Springs,
yes.
and they'd sat there, and we actually could see how people would have spiritual experiences
Oh,
here.
wow.
And because of the colors of the water, the clarity of the water, the welling of the waters up, the ripples, and
Yes.
we can see how this could be, and the beauty of the place. This is a place where people well have spiritual experiences. Therefore, we adjudge that they have uh, spiritual qualities for non-Maori people. And it was I just I had shivers when they did that because
That
they actually jumped over the fence and said, "Yeah," and joined us. Really, yeah,
now that you put it like that, that
yeah.
really sounds like an awesome judge.
It was,
That's
it was, and that for me, and for me, it just is this thread that of spirit that is through this whole uh, the Save Our Springs campaign, all the people that are joining it. There's this thread of spirit that's there. The Maori call that word wairua. They have this called which means spirit. They say so. Each person has a wairua. Every human being they have a wairua. Um, Places have wairua, and wairua can move between people. Wairua could move between you and I here. Yeah,
right.
Wairua is spirit. That's the Maori word. That's why they understand it. It's very much the same as I understand it. I would probably use the word spirit because yeah, that's so we each have a spirit. So we're spiritual beings at our core. We need to wake up to that, or if we want it.
Right.
And and also there are places, there are spiritual places like Te Waikarepuku Springs and other places,
Yes.
and also Wairua can move. Wairua can move through books, through
Mhm.
podcasts, through all
Yes,
sorts of things. You see,
definitely.
so it moves and connects with people. It usually touches people's hearts, or they kind of wake up. They get insights, and that's why we're or spirit moving about. Yeah,
Yes. So as I hear you talk about it now and see you like all light up again and having this great landmark thing happening, it must have been devastating when only like not even a year later they made the fast track amendment bill,
yeah,
and that basically
yeah,
threw all of that out of the window.
yeah, yeah. So I just you hear my big sigh. It was devastating because I was really tired. We were all tired. We'd done so well. I just I'd written this book called Upwellings, it was published, and I still haven't launched it because I haven't had the time. And it's just it was just I stuffed a kick in the guts really, and I just deflating kind of uh, yeah, just a very like, kind of exhausting kind of oh no, oh, no, and what does this mean? And then and I wasn't really able to kind of get have a big kind of woe is me party. I wasn't able to do that.
Yes.
I probably took a day or two, just to kind of take stock. And I mean, there was never any doubt that I would rise up and fight this.
Mm.
And and but it just I thought I'm in such a uh, changing time at the moment. I don't have my own house anymore. I'm living in someone else's accommodation,
Mm.
and everything. So I'm in this change place. But I thought I've got a certain amount of time. I can do a petition. I can create one.
Right.
and I can create a film, which I did, and create the petition, and I know how long it's going to take, and I can take it to Wellington, and then I can have a rest.
Yes.
And I
As
can
you,
work very hard, like sometimes 15 hours a day, and 12 hours, that kind of long, just
if there is a person deserving of a break, that probably is you. So
think
hopefully,
it.
hopefully,
When you were listening to that,
hopefully you will have
the man from Germany speaking while you're up. He says, I need a break.
very much so.
Yeah.
Um, but as you have mentioned the petition and you kind of talked about it already going to Wellington or having went to there,
I've been there. We've been there.
is there something that people can still do or still have to do maybe to
Yes,
get involved?
there is. Yes, there is. I mean, people can still, I think at the moment, so people are still writing letters to ministers,
Right.
and they can go to SaveOurSprings.nz, and there's an AI thing in there that can write
Oh,
letters
yes.
to all, and it can suggest what you'd like to do and all this kind of thing. And to all the ministers and all that, you could go and write a letter. Can't sign the petition anymore, but that's done.
Right.
But we're in a kind of a wait and see, because we don't know exactly what's going to be in the fast track bill or what's not going to be in the fast track bill.
Right.
And so in Mohua, people are making signs. They're putting signs on the road. So anybody who comes there, everyone's very clear. No mine. The community doesn't want to mine.
Right.
So the local community is working. Save Our Springs is working in terms of working with the parliament team, the Labour Party, and that might be the so-called Social Democrats. I don't know what Germany's what got that, but it's that kind of
Yes.
born in that, yeah, I thought so. Yes, so it's that kind of group, and the Green Party, which you'll have in Germany.
Yeah.
So it's those two groups. They're helping us inside Parliament to get a submission, which I've written with help from others and our lawyer in particular, uh, to actually highlight the dangers to Te Waikarepupu Springs.
Right.
And that is, we kind of get that through to be listened to at the moment. So I'm working with the politicians to do that. So it's not just stop. That work's going on in Parliament.
So that's still ongoing work
Ongoing.
for you and your organization.
Yep.
And as far as the people of New Zealand, they can write their letters, they can make their opinions known, they can be loud and they
They
can
can. And they can be educated as well. Like
right.
they can go to our Save Our Springs Facebook page, and or the SaveOurSprings.net, our what I call a Facebook. They can go to Facebook, or they can go to the web page. The web
Yes.
page has got films in there. It's got pictures of a petition being presented. It's got this incredible film called Sands Creek, and so they're very cool. Because they're good for younger people, because
Right.
they're shamanic in the sense that it uses lots of uh, music, shamanic music, which really helps people to tune into nature and to listen to nature. So Tim Firkin, the producers, he's about half my age, and but he's really knows all the music. He knows all the people, and he called Sands Creek. He called it. He subtitled it "Fast Track Desecration,"
Right.
and desecration means the destruction of something sacred. Yeah, I mean stepping into something that is sacred. And, yeah, destroying or desecration's worse than that. It's just uh, undermining it.
It's
It
doable horrible things to things that are
Yeah.
not supposed to be
Yes.
undergoing those things.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And that's a really good film. that helps people just to be aware of. So what's happening at Sands Creek and at Te Waikarepupu, and it might be really good for your listeners to know this, that this is one part in the globe. This is New Zealand, and this is happening, but they know it very well. This is happening other places,
Definitely.
and there are mines going up. There are ways that uh, the nature has been desecrated. Just look at Ukraine, poor Ukraine, and this war and the missiles, the bombs that are going off close to nuclear uh, power stations and the people and all this. There's darkness going on. This darkness comes on. It's going on all around the world, and so they may not be able to come here and come or right from Germany, but it's just it's a question. I think if I was going to say anything, which I'm going to say it anyway, is I think that I would say that waking up and growing as a human being involves entering into the the struggle to protect at this time. That as simple as that. And that's going on all around the world. People can be involved in many places. Yeah, my place is here uh, in Golden Bay mostly, but in Aotearoa. But people know that. Your listeners will know that as well. I would just signal that it's that that like I'm a psychotherapist, I know how people grow, and I know that it's not just becoming self-centered. It's not becoming. It's all becoming. It's not about becoming increasingly egocentric. That's not human growth. That's the opposite.
That is the opposite.
It is the opposite. So it's just its ability to look beyond yourself and to
Yes,
connect with the with the struggles that are going on nearby you. And maybe your spirit will say, oh, get involved here, get involved here, but look beyond yourself. And it's in that looking beyond yourself, serving the earth in some way. That's the path of salvation, path of really growing as a person.
yeah. Um, that was a wonderful summary of everything we talked about. And I just want to take another quote out of the book I read as well that
Mm.
goes in there perfectly, which you were talking about. Each and every single one of us, we have a different role in these struggles to protect the originality of life versus the destroyers.
Yes.
So obviously we don't all have the same role, but
No.
we can find our role. Everyone can
Yes.
find their role.
Yes. And uh, that's very important for, I'm imagining your listeners, a number of them will be younger people. eh, that word sometimes it's used in English anyway as the word of a vocation, a central call on your life. Now,
Right.
that can be anything. And that often will involve training, not always, but you can find your own kind of training sometimes for what you're going to do. But, if you really, yeah, there are just lots of paths. And it's kind of hearing that path. Where do you go? Where can you may need to get training to get to a certain point where you're able to offer something to the world, right? And that might be some of your listeners may be right on their path at that moment, or they might have gone beyond that, might have got a degree in something, and then maybe where do I go? What do I do? Do I how can I make a difference? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question that, in my opinion, everyone should ask
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
They
Yes.
haven't answered that for
That,
themselves yet.
and that was very much the question of the river tribe. That was
Right.
very much the question that that the young people there, the river tribe, they were coming down beside the Takaka River, and some of them stayed there for 6 months. They would just sit
Right.
there and they meditated, and they really sought the path that was theirs to walk and theirs alone, and they realized there was a whole world that was beckoning, that they had a world that these forces within the world wanted them to conform to something.
Right.
And they were asking, do we need to conform to that? Do we need to
Yes.
sort of get sucked into the big machine? Or do we actually, are there other ways that are right? for me and for our, yeah, our culture. So they were really good questions. I suspect they're still live. Yeah, across the earth.
That those are the big questions, and
Mm,
those are definitely very important questions that we don't want to answer for every or anyone actually, but everyone should ask themselves that.
sure.
Do I have to conform to something? Just ask yourself that and
Yeah.
try to figure out an answer
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a force. There's a force that every country is trying to say, you need to go this way or that country or, yeah, the culture, the Western culture, for example. This is the way they're supposed to be. This is what we do. And, but the decisive question is, what am I called to do?
Yes.
Am I being called to? And that's the people who have made a huge difference, have heard that call and they've really looked deep and discovered what their call is and have graduated way into it over time.
You definitely being one of those people. So, um,
That's true. Yes, I have followed that path.
as we've heard throughout the podcast, and exhaustion doesn't stop you, nothing stops you because once you know your calling,
Yeah,
that's what you're going to do.
yeah, yes. It doesn't. I wouldn't want to make it too shiny because you can be exhausted sometimes. I get forgetful, and I should do this. And there's too much for me to do, and things drop off the end, and uh, yeah, sometimes I get tired, don't think so clearly, and but I stand up and I keep going. I get my sleep, I rest as much as I can. I go for a walk and I keep going. Yeah,
So, yeah, if there is nothing that you would want to add to these conversations, because I hope I didn't forget anything important. I think we covered most of it. We have a very clear picture of what has happened, what is happening here. So,
mm,
as you've said, we're in New Zealand, so it's interesting for people to see what's going on here that are not aware of it. But also, it's a call to people to see what is happening close to me. What is it I can do? So, I think we really covered a lot of
that's
important topics here.
yeah, I think so. What's happening overseas is the same which is happening in New Zealand. We may be a little bit further away from it. Those forces that want to turn nature into money, basically, and to help us live more wastefully often. Those forces are still very much here where your listeners are. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, if you want to get even more information about, especially the things happening in New Zealand, in the description, I will put a link to the webpage, safeoursprings.nz. I will also put a link to your personal webpage where people can find your books as well if they want
Yeah.
to inform
Yeah.
themselves more about the topic or just want to read very interesting stories combined with poets, as in the Ta Kaka song that I
Yep.
wrote, that I read. Sorry, you wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read it. So um, beautiful story there. And as you've said, the other books like the Upwelling, very informative book. So
Mm.
people can check all these things out. I will put them in the description.
Thank you.
And yeah, lastly, I'll just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing
Yeah. Thank you,
everything.
Mike. Been a good conversation.
It really
Yeah. Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Was a
Thank you.
very
And
interesting
I
talk.
wish you well in your travels,
Thank
and
you.
I wish your listeners well as well. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And have a good evening.
You too.